Well, good evening. Welcome to the Francis Humphrey Lecture Series for May. We're excited about this program tonight, and I want to turn over the program right now to McAvoy Lane to introduce our speaker. And thank you for coming tonight to do that for us.
Oh, thank you, Ron. Nice job on World War I, isn't this something? I remember it well. All right, pop quiz. Our Nevada state flower is... very good. State tree,
The shoe tree.
Animal, the bighorn. Yes. And our Nevada icon, David Toe. Those of us lucky enough to know David know him as Emperor II. That is Emperor of the United States, Protector of Mexico, Champion of Nevada, and Caretaker of the Comstock Lode. Here, here. That's our David. Really, our intrepid David Toll is a Nevada treasure. In fact, he is Nevada personified. His portrait will hang in the archives one day, framed in sagebrush. Author of The Nevada Traveler, now the best-selling book ever published in Nevada, and a prize-winning journalist. David awakened the Gold Hill News from a 92-year slumber and made it the best little paper in the West before publishing its final issue on the back table there in 1978. On the cover of that memorable issue is a portrait of Mark Twain. And the banner, "Hell no, I never worked for the Gold Hill News." David said, "Starting up a newspaper without any money in a ghost town is not the easiest job anybody ever took on." Along with being our matchless pal, David has been a wealth of reliable Nevada history, folklore, for all of us fortunate enough to know him. I cite this example of an old piece of correspondence between us somewhere around 1990. David, now that the government has seized Mustang Ranch for back taxes and is required by law to continue to run it and is losing money, what are we to think of a government that cannot make money selling whiskey in a Nevada brothel? McAvoy, what you have just sent along is a myth. The feds never tried to run Mustang Ranch, although they'd like to have, and so they never failed. Instead, after asking Joe Conforti to run it for them and being turned down, they hired a manager and persuaded some of the girls to come back to work, but could not open the doors because Story County would not give them a license. In a way, it's an even better story the way it happened, because the punchline is that the federal government could not pass the background check. Signed, the Ministry of Truth, David Toll. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Ministry of Truth, David Toll.
Thank you, Paul. I'll get you for this. Well, I hope this is going to be some fun, because that's just what we said to each other when we took that photograph. Hope this is going to be some fun. This photograph was taken shortly after the news was established on June the 4th, 1974. The first edition came out. That's me on the left. In the center is Peter Laufer. He had some experience as a newspaper guy at that time, and he went on to have a whole lot more. He's now a visiting professor at the University of Oregon, professor of journalism. And the third party is the third of four partners who established the paper. That's Chandler Laughlin of Silver City. You might know him as Travis T. Hipp. Alas, no longer with us. And I guess it must have been the fourth partner who took the photo and that was Buckeye Blake, the kid who grew up in Dayton and is now internationally famous as a sculptor, did the Kit Carson sculpture in the Capitol grounds. And I can remember the day that we decided we would start the newspaper. Probably was end of April or early May. And as I think back on it and try to explain why we did it, it's just that it was in us to do. And there was nobody to say no. So we did it. And this is a more famous photo. Yeah, this is a picture you might have seen. It was actually first, it was taken by Bill Gemino, and it was first appeared in the Reno newspapers. That was the staff in 1975, the year after we started. On the left is David Moore, who stayed with the news right until we shut her down. And then after that, his career took a terrible turn for the worse, and he ended up being editor of Nevada Magazine, and only recently retired from that difficult task. Leanna McNeely right next to him. I'm standing up in the back, beyond, in front of the door. Lila and Jimmy Crandall. In the fur is Janice Maximova, and her brother Rob is seated on the ground right beside her. That's Dan Murray coming next. Also on the ground, next in line is Jack Pelciano, Jumpin' Jack. Darlene Hickerson, Susan Germino, Bill Germino, and Betty. No, Betty. Barbara Herman. Her mother was Betty Lyon, but that's Barbara Herman. Barbara Herman, when she was in the 8th grade in New York State, she was the 3rd best speller in New York. Wow. Yeah. So don't tell me we didn't have anything to offer. We were very strong. What I'm going to do is keep talking as fast as I can and show you as much as I can of the paper, and hopefully some of what made it interesting will reveal itself. And no. Here we go. Okay, that's our first edition. We didn't wait till somebody died. It just was a coincidence. And because it was Father Meineke who died, that made our debut pretty important, because he was a wonderful person and a great benefactor of Virginia City and the Comstock. So fortunately it went well enough. See if I can remember which way to do it. No, I can't. Okay, now we've just opened up the paper to the editorial page, and you see the notice at the top. I don't know if you can read it. It says, with this issue, the Gold Hill News resumes publication after a hiatus of 92 years. To our readers and advertisers, we apologize for any inconvenience caused by the delay. And again, we wanted to make a good impression, a big impression at least. And so our first editorial is about the Chief Deputy Sheriff of Story County. Name was Jim Miller, Sr. I'll just read a little bit of it. The news demands the removal of Jim Miller from the Story County Sheriff's Department. Deputy Miller is not a good cop. He's a bully who likes to pick on people, and he abuses the authority of the Story County Sheriff's Office to do it. It is dangerous to have a man with Miller's zest for misusing authority wearing a gun and a badge. We believe he ought to take up some other line of work, and the sooner the better. Jim Miller is the best fry cook on the Comstock. Let's get him back behind the grill. Yeah. I heard later that he wanted to fry my ass after that one. You know, it's full of, we had 4 letters in the first edition. We had news from all over locally. Oh, that's what that is. This is from page 4, and there's a news story about a male brothel coming in American Flat. And then below that, Comstock students from the Dayton School spent a couple of days at Clear Creek in the Sierra foothills near Carson last month. This is Channing Lovely's memoir of the event. Can you read it all right? Clunk. I went to bed, clunk. I had fallen out of bed. When I was crawling into bed again, I hear Ralph. Somebody Stokeld had thorn up. Thud. I had fallen out of bed again. Ralph. And so forth. Pretty good writing for a kid. We had news. It was a newspaper, so we had all kinds of news in it. Sports cars coming, trailers coming, Dayton next exit, rummage sale held. The Tioga Pass is open for the season. In every edition, as we're the family's friend, we published a calendar that was perfectly suited to attach to your refrigerator. And we got some more coming up that we could see as we go along. There's this one. This was a Buckeye Blake watercolor. And you can see he's still doing so much of the handwritten headlines. Here was our second edition. Okay. Oh, thank you. I'll try. Second edition, the Black Brothers building, which has long since been torn down, was being condemned. We read our editorials. We suggested a new kind of parking meter. And as you see, our staff box appears now with just 2 names in it. There's a page full of letters that relate back to that the whole next page is full of letters about Jim Miller. And then another half page of letters about other topics. Our first story from Squaw Tom. We started including stories by Squaw Tom Sanders, who later on was awarded first prize for best writing by a correspondent in a weekly paper. And I believe that he's probably the only winner of that prize who couldn't read or write. Tom was a tremendous storyteller. He's a wonderful storyteller. He was a wonderful guy. And he told his stories into a tape recorder. And some poor Scott like me, or Gary Elam, or Dave Moore, or his sister Susie, who was there for a while, would transcribe those stories that he told. And he didn't just talk into a tape recorder. He told his stories, and if he came to a place where he'd forgotten to include something or it didn't sound right, he'd just back it up and start again at the right spot until he got it right all the way through. Terrific stories. We had an astrology column written by a local expert. Now we're going on to our third edition. There's a report on mining the lode, which wasn't too much. The orgy at Dayton, that's all about the clampers coming to town. And you notice this is the first time the slug line appeared up top saying, Mark Twain never worked for this paper. We took a lot of pride in that. Then that's the whole next paper. So I just want to tell you that on the editorial page, we got the news from the Secretary of State's office, I believe, or is it the Nevada Gaming Commission, that our parking meter idea wasn't going to work out. We had a letter from a name withheld by request in Virginia City editor Will you please find a place in your paper for some of God's words? I have read every one of your that you've put out, and I haven't seen one thing about God yet. I do hope to see this in your next paper. Thank you. Well, we'll see. There's art by Jim McCormick. News, another calendar, another Buckeye painting. This is the Double Jack contest. And each, the county commissions, the planning commissions, the official meetings of Story and Lyon County, at least as far as the Comstock is concerned, are listed on the calendar. And I guess another squad, Tom, had the first chapter of My Memories of the Comstock by Harry Gorham, who had been a mining superintendent during the glory years, and it was my great-grandfather. Okay, let's press right along, and here's issue number 5589. We picked up the numbering at the top where they left off. Our first one was 5586. This one had a weather report. We were very careful to publish the weather reports after the weather had taken place, because that way we could be sure to get it right. On the night of July 8th, a kindly Mother Nature notified Comstock residents of the size and location of the leaks in their roofs by sending a soppy Pacific rainstorm from over the Sierras. Thoughtful Comstockers may now be seen atop their residences with tar buckets. The rest will receive second notices from the melting snows of winter. The Black Brothers building still going down. And here's the headline in the corner at the bottom. Joe Conforti paid the news a visit the other day. Among other things, the whorehouse tycoon was asked to comment on the charge that prostitute voters at Mustang Ranch could control Story County elections. He said that the charge was fostered by his political enemies in Story County. They are sore losers, he said. In fact, I can't think of the right name for some of those bastards up there. The truth is, Conforti said, that in the last election there wasn't a single county race that was decided by less than 100 votes. You can see that with only 50 to 60 prostitutes voting, they didn't swing anything. And what if they do vote in a block? So do truck drivers and blacks, and so do women, and so do old people. So what? It's legal. By the way, if there's one thing you should know about Joe Conforti is that he was a political genius. There's no question about it. And he had the money to back it up, too. He knew just where to spend it. Let's see where we are here. Oh, yeah, the Clamper event in Dayton. That's a Buckeye Blake drawing at the top. And I'll just read a little something from the story. By about 2 a.m., the Clampers began to thin out. And by dawn Sunday, there were only a few remaining to show a flicker of life. Boozed bodies lay spread eagled to the sun until a few able-bodied clampers still on their feet could drag them into the shade to dry. What became of those unfortunates, no one knows. In Virginia City, one such casualty was noticed lying in the dirt with his head pillowed on the board sidewalk of C Street. He remained motionless so long in the full light of morning that nearby business people began laying wagers he had died altogether. When the dog Charlie Brown paused long enough in his perambulations to lift his leg and water the clamper, people began to flip coins to see who would call for the coroner. But at length, the corpse stirred itself, shuddered, and crawled slowly up a post to stand erect. At length it wandered away and was gone. And then there was a nice story about an argument in a restaurant. So, Andy and the Snake Market, VC Fire News. Okay. Oh, on the 4th of July, this was July 12th, so it was a report on the 4th of July, and in the boxing. They had boxing matches on the 4th of July in Silver City. So, let's see here. First, the children fought. That was, just to get everybody worked up. In the first bout between grown men, Nicholas Cole took the crowd's decision over Dennis Lisbury after 3 rounds. Henry Park of Silver City fought 2 grueling rounds with Rick Haley of Christmas Valley, California. Park's nose was bloodied in round 2, and he was awarded the decision by default when Haley refused to answer the bell for round 3. I couldn't hit him again, Haley told the news, as he was preparing to return to his Sierra Mountain home. I'm not into hurting people, he said. Buddha is really here today. Dan, he said. So, Dayton Rockets, Counterfeit Bar. Dick Walton started to write for, he had a book that he was working on about Virginia City, and so chapters of his book began to appear in the paper. Oh, and look, this is a public service. This poster is published in the public interest by the Gold Hill News because so many thousands of them have been ripped off from post office walls. So there's one, everybody would have their own wanted poster. And another, Memories of the Comstock. So we're racing right along now. And that was, oh wait, there was one important thing I needed to tell you. I think this was where it was. No, yeah. But I guess it didn't make it into the, okay. So, there. This is a staff box that appeared in our 4th paper. And if you notice, it's quite a bit different from the one that appeared in the 3rd paper. Peter Laufer's name is no longer there. And the reason it's not there is because he and I got into a huge fight about the future of the paper. And the basis of our difference was geographic. Peter lived in Silver City. I lived in Gold Hill, Lyon County, Story County. Jim Miller Sr., Story County, not Lyon County. So the argument was over how tough are we going to push this? Is this going to be our fight, to fight to get Jim Miller out of there? Or is it going to be just one topic that we can address? And the wonderful thing about that beef, and I guess we were yelling and screaming, is that one of the people who turned out to be most essential to the paper's success was coming up the drive to see if there was some way she could volunteer, be a part of the paper. Because it was developing some impact in the community. And she told me later that as she walked up the drive, she heard us yelling and screaming. And she thought to herself, this sounds interesting. That was Darlene Hickerson. And Darlene was everything at the paper. But the thing that really impressed me about Darlene was that she put an H in her name, Darlene, D-A-H, because numeristically, it worked out to be a much better name with an H in it. And I thought, that takes some initiative. That takes some get up and go. Look at that. Woman's changing her life. I like it. And she turned out, as I said, to be a huge, huge benefit to everybody involved in the paper. Let's see what else we can find in here. Next one. I guess there's, yeah, we don't need to worry about that. Camels race again. Da 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 da. Okay. Guaranteed, I don't know if you, guaranteed no Clamper news in this edition. We had DA denies all, just nothing, just a great headline for a nothing story. And so I marked this, oh yeah, another weather report. At about 20 minutes past 1 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, August 4th, a summer thunder shower exploded down upon the Comstock lode. Lightning bolts rent the air. Householders scrambled for buckets and coffee cans as the hideous din of the thunder drew an answering roar of applause from rained-on roofs. Hail fell like buckshot. Plant life flinched and trembled. By 2 o'clock, the storm had raced south, but a pearly mist persisted until dark, leaving the desert fragrant and cool. That's, oh, now we get in, let's see. Yeah, look at this. This is election coverage, Gold Hill News style. I tell you what, and I could show you page after page. I don't think we photographed every single page. But these guys are candidates for Story County Commission. Okay, we also did Dayton Township Justice of the Peace, Story County Sheriff. Oh yeah, here's the County Commission. So can you imagine how long it takes to interview all these people and transcribe the interview as correctly as it was done? Dave Moore did that. Magnificent, really. Another chapter of Dick Walton's book on Virginia City, and it was about people like Florence Edwards, who had the Silver Dollar Hotel, and about what made Virginia City so very interesting at that time. Okay, now here we are at number 5590, August 23rd. The Mason Valley News, does it still? Probably not. It's owned by Gannett now, but at the time had a motto for itself: the only paper in the world that gives a damn about Yerington. So we borrowed that and we said, just another newspaper that doesn't give a damn about Yerington. And I heard the other day that Walter Cox took offense at that. I must say, Walter. Black building probably to come down for sure. Porcupine season begins. Letter to the editor. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that we, the residents of Dayton, Silver City, and associated areas, are having to deal this summer with a virtually insurmountable difficulty: the great fly plague of '74. As a beleaguered and condemned citizen, I'm appealing to you, the Gold Hill News, to come to our aid in these trying times and immediately increase the bulk and therefore the striking power of your paper. I find it most difficult to effectively squash a fly with a newspaper of only 8 or 12 pages. And so, let's see where this takes us. That's the next paper. I don't suppose that we need to linger in this one very long. Reminiscence by Jake Lawler, who was a basketball coach in Virginia City back in the 30s. And so, our motto this time is just wait till we get some money, and they're still waiting. Lower left, Craig Hyde won the bean guess at the Silver City Fireman's Ball. There were 2,513 beans, and Craig guessed 2,500. See, we tried to include all the news that made a difference to people. I mean, it's not all just the official stuff, although, of course, we covered that as best we could. This was the camel race program in 1974. Stephen Saylor produced the art, and it has everything about the camel races, including, it doesn't show it, including welcome to Virginia City, minimum bail $200. And as I remember, they put 200 people in jail that weekend. This is an example of the breadth of our coverage. The natural world. John Cobby wrote a series of articles about trout fishing, stalking Salmotruta. And then the tarantulas, of course, are a local phenomenon that everybody on the Comstock is familiar with. And so just a quick look at this. The sight of the season's first tarantula is an occasion for rejoicing. Thus, the news that one of the flapjack-sized travelers had been seen to cross the highway from northwest to southeast in the vicinity of the Dayton Consolidated Mine was greeted with glad cries by a group of naturalists gathered at the Golden Gate Bar recently. When the glee had subsided, one of the group delivered a brief address on the subject, concluding that the eight-legger moved with the season from high country to low country like deer. Since this was the accepted version of the matter, it naturally was greeted with warm approval. But then another scientist took the floor and advanced the novel proposal that there was no migration at all, but that this was mating season for the big nippers. You take a close look at those spiders, he said, and you will see that they are all males. The listening scholars reeled with surprise. Oh no, I lost my place. And a silence fell over the Lyceum. And the females all live on the other side of the road, one of them ventured at last, struggling to grasp the new idea. No, the sage replied, but if you followed one of them long enough, he would eventually lead you to a female. The silence deepened as inquiring minds grappled with the problem. Story by Clark Guild, who was one of the founders of this museum, about growing up in Dayton. Dayton, 1895. Another chapter in Harry Gorham's book. Here we are. September 20th, 1974. Camel race results, see page 6. Oh, and then on our way to page 6, we included a 5-day calendarette because of the gap between our last calendar and our next one upcoming. So you could cut this out and hang it on your fridge. Yeah. And we had a letter from Denmark, and we were starting to receive foreign correspondence. We'll get to some of that. And also, I should say, another of our stars was Jim Crandall, who was our Dayton bureau chief, and he's just starting to get into the swing of things here. Bad morning in Dayton. On a sunny morning in Dayton recently, Swiss Bill stepped out of doors to be confronted with a neat pile of dog poop on his front step. Swiss Bill was not pleased. In fact, after a brief and unprintable soliloquy, Bill grabbed up the nearest shovel, lunged with a mighty scoop, and made a blind heave of relief. But to Sleepy Bill's surprise and further annoyance, his eyes cleared to reveal that the whole shovelful had sailed skillfully through the open rear window of his station wagon. Okay, so, there's one other thing maybe here. Oh yeah, the Washoe Circle bird. Another natural history lesson about the, and I think I won't read this, it takes a little too long, but it's about the bird that flies in ever diminishing circles until it flies up into itself. That's the Washoe Circle bird. Committee ideas wanted from anybody. Free fish fry at Silver Springs. All the news of the community. Reminiscence of Washoe Valley, 1922. So we tried to include as much of the history of the place as we could put our hands on, because certainly in a place like the Comstock, history is, ooh, what did I do? Uh-oh. Yikes. It was at this point in October of 1974 that we changed the format so that we had a kind of a magazine cover, and then it opens out into be a newspaper front page. And that worked out really pretty well for us. Q&A. You know, we're going to have a little after party at Adele's. I'm willing to take any questions, but we haven't even got to the beginning yet. Jukebox victory. At 8:30 on the evening of October 21st, a handful of patrons in a Dayton bar grew weary with boredom. At the suggestion of one thumb twiddler to another, the jukebox was fed, only to return the quarter without comment. The crew became annoyed at the silent box and vowed to make it sing. First, they fed it quarters, but the machine disdained them. It spilled them back out again, or else swallowed them without a peep. Then the disgusted music lovers resorted to force. For 15 minutes, they assaulted the machine with kicks and slaps. They battered different parts of the anatomy. Hesitant at first, the blows became more impassioned and heartfelt as the machine defiantly maintained its silence. Then they tried guile. The plug was moved to a different outlet. And while one of the frustrated talked sweetly to it, another tickled its keyboard. And then a third man kicked it suddenly in the coin return. But it was all in vain. The machine was steadfast in its silent determination. It left the humans to reflect upon technological progress and the future of mankind. Well, Mary says we're going to have to stop. I don't know, Mary. Maybe we could take a vote. Road closed. The Tioga Pass is closed for the winter. We tried to keep everybody informed in that. This is actually called The Dancing Prospectors, and it's by Joanne Johnson, who showed up here tonight, of all things. How wonderful. And I got to show you this next thing. We'll just take it through the end of 1974, okay? Here's our Christmas edition. That's a Thomas Nast Santa Claus. It says, Merry Christmas, this one's on us. And it's a free copy of the paper. This photograph shows the Dayton church coming down. The county smashed it. And Jimmy Crandall won first prize from the State Press Association for that photo. We had this Steve Saylor illustration of a Nevada Christmas Carol by Sam Davis, the Carson City newspaper guy from the 19th century. It's a terrific story, and of course, Christmas. And Squaw Tom, story on Jesus' birthday. Also, Prison Pete. We had a cartoonist at the state prison. He volunteered, and we said sure, and the warden said okay, and so we had him in the paper till he got out.
Could you elaborate on the demise of the church in Dayton with Rocky and Squaw Tom?
Oh yeah, well see, if we were to keep on going, we would come to the photograph of Rocky Adamson, the Dayton constable, and Squaw Tom Sanders, the perpetual volunteer to get into a fight. And Tom challenged anybody in the hierarchy of Lyon County to a fight to the death at the site of the church. And he waited and waited, and nobody responded. Yeah, damn shame. By the way, we used to give awards. We had the Blowhard Award. Bo Johansson won that a lot. And we had a long-running contest for the new Nevada state flag. Lots of terrific suggestions there. And so you have at least a sense of what the paper was like. These are just some of the covers, from the papers that came after. This was when the Silver City Guard ambushed the Bicentennial wagon train. Yeah, fired the cannon, and we had news reporters embedded. That's a drawing, by the way, from my great-grandfather's book. It was done by his grandson, my Uncle John. That's Buckeye Blake, Camel Race. Who is that? Oh, that's Greg Hess and Bob Dufresne, the Double Jack champions from Virginia City. Oh, yes, look at this. Which reminds me, we got some books for sale, and we have some T-shirts, too, that have this on it. So you guys, who wants to ask another question? Yes, sir.
I heard a rumor that one time you tried to tear a pair of DUIs apart with your mules.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I passed over that. It was actually in one of our early editions. And, well, he brings up a scientific experiment that we call the Levi ripoff. Have you seen the ancient advertisements that show two mules trying to pull a pair of Levi's apart? Well, we did it. Actually, we used a couple of small ponies. A couple of minutes after the horses stopped spooking and the rope stopped slipping around the saddle horns, the celebrated and original blue denim overalls ripped in half. No rivets popped, no seams split. The thread and material just broke and ripped. The ponies didn't even strain. So. Yes, sir.
Was there any fallout from your coverage on the Undersheriff, Mr. Miller? Did you ever encounter any repercussions from your coverage?
Actually, no. I can point to a lot of talk, including some by Jim Miller, who had taken some kind of an interest in burning down my house. But really, nothing ever happened, and I really believe that that is the power of the press, because we hold nothing back. You know, if anything happened, we would put it all in the paper. Yes, sir.
David, can you tell us about your current online publication?
Well, my wife and I publish a website called nevadatravel.net, the Nevada Travel Network, and it's sort of an outgrowth of the Complete Nevada Traveler. It's all about what's happening around Nevada and what you should be doing instead of sitting at home. We also publish a monthly Nevadagram, which comes by email. And if you would like to be on our list, please come and give me a card or an address, and I'll be very happy to sign you up. There's no expense. You can unsubscribe anytime. Yes, sir.
Mr. Dole, you're the foremost authority on our late, well, hopefully not late friend, Joe Conforti. Is it Cabin in the Sky, or is it just Cabin the Sky?
Joe, you know, that place, if you've all seen it, it's in Gold Hill on the way up to Virginia City. That was once the sheriff's home. Sheriff Jacobson had a little house there. And Joe bought it from him to be friendly and built the Cabin in the Sky around it. So it's a dinner house of the 1970s, but in the middle of it is still Sheriff Jacobson's old house.
Cabin in the Sky.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that was Joe's, by the way, that was Joe's pronunciation, Cabin in the Sky. Cabin in the Sky. Yeah. Somebody.
What's the biggest controversy that you ever had with the newspaper? Did you have any huge controversies with the locals, or with, what do you say with the biggest one that you had would be?
I wish I could put my hands on it without fumbling and wasting a lot of time, but there was a wonderful meeting at the Virginia City Chamber of Commerce when Don McBride, who was the Bucket of Blood and was the chairman at the time, had some complaint about a story that we'd done. And he said, I remember David Toll when he was clean cut. And now he looks like something that cat dragged in. And I characterized the corpulent bartender in my reporting of his speech. But really, I mean, that's it. There were some harsh words back and forth, but never any, no damage was done. John?
Yeah, is the Scott Town book, the collection, out of print now?
Not entirely. I have some copies for sale here, $16.95. I wish I had time to read you one. They're magnificent. They're stories from a guy who lived with Indians. They are about life in the Indian culture, sort of. But Tom was not an Indian, so he doesn't speak from the Indian perspective exactly either. It's a very interesting read if you have any curiosity about what Nevada was like beyond the gaming kind of stories that we've all heard as being Nevada history. This is Nevada history that never been in any book till this. Yes, sir. Ma'am, I can only see.
I was just wondering if there's any already collection of them archived online somewhere, or microfiche, or in a book, or are you thinking of collecting these for future reading, or anything like that?
Well, you can't read this stuff. You can't go back over it without thinking to yourself, geez, somebody else besides me ought to see this. But it's a little bit awkward to think about how you're going to collect this stuff and still maintain it as a story that was in the newspaper. Once it appears in a book, it's got a whole different quality to it. Well, yeah, probably would. Yes, sir.
David, the Gold Hill News usually had a graphics credit for UHAS graphics.
Yes.
Is that the same Victor UHAS who now illustrates for Rolling Stone?
Alas, no. It's Kenny Uhas, and he lives in Spokane, I believe now, up there in Washington State, and he's a neon artist. And he sent me I sent out a little note, to old friends about this event tonight, and he sent me a very kind note back to the effect that the Gold Hill News was what got him started on his career. And Kenny didn't come into the picture until 76 or 77. So he wasn't a part of this first batch, but he was a big part of what we were doing. Yeah. Well,
David, you have, it's only 7:25, so we have some time for people to ask questions and for you to tell more stories and talk, and also I know you have some books that you want to sell. So we do have more time.
okay.
Just to let you know.
Let me just
And
see. This is what the declassified ads page looked like. Yeah. Oh, we were having a problem with the Postal Service, so we found this 6-part illustration. Here's Steve Saylor. Yeah, here's what I was trying to show you with Prison Pete. The bubble says Virgo, right? Okay. Now, here we go. Now we're coming into the early part of 76. So, 75. 75. So, yes.
David, I noticed on the covers that were flashing by, one was the Mayhem Mustang.
Yes.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. When, we brought the we shut down the paper at for the winter of 75. We just couldn't face another winter. So we closed it down, and we brought it back again in the following June. And we were greeted not with it was an obituary in a sense. This time it was the shooting at Mustang Ranch when Ross Breimer shot Oscar Bonavena in the parking lot. And he shot him because Oscar was drunk and raising hell and threatening to come in, and he reached for a gun in his boot, and when he straightened up to show it, Ross shot him and killed him. And that's why he only served 1.5 years for manslaughter, because of the gun. When Oscar fell to the ground, people came rushing out, including a guy named McNulty, I remember his name, was the security person for Mustang at the time. And he brought another gun, because he didn't know that Ross had one. So he brought one along just to leave in case. And when they lifted Ross up to take him away, there was the other gun. So anyway, that's, I guess, why Ross only served 18 months. When we came back, we went every week. And we raised our salaries from $25 a week to $125 a week. And for some reason, it worked. It just went on. But the Metro edition, this was a Metropolitan edition, it was a broadsheet. We just wanted to have a broadsheet paper. And I published the first edition of the Complete Nevada Traveler through the University Press at that time. And so we had a big ad for that. And we also had a in memoriam Badwater Bill. Remember him? Yeah. Arnold Frick was his name. Yes, sir. Anything about this? Well, the Silver City Guard appears in a lot of stories. In fact, here they are right here. And so I can't say there's a story in every edition or even every other edition, but the Silver City Guard plays a big part. Yeah, yeah, part of the flavor of the moment. And we had another big poster that was in this one. Ski the Comstock. Yeah.
Some things you keep forever. Including him. I didn't know if you had one, I brought a couple.
I'm glad you did, Andrew. Thank you.
Somewhere in here's Badwater Bill, too.
Here's the winter calendar where we put out as we were leaving because we wanted everybody to be able to keep up. I've got copies of the books. Squaw Tom, my great-grandfather's book about life on the Comstock in the 19th century. The guidebook. After my experience with the news, Joe Conforti and I teamed up to write his autobiography. Fabulous experience for me. He didn't care for it much.
He's still in Brazil.
He is in Brazil. He's 90. He's not as quick as he used to be, but he's still cooking. Yeah, living happily ever after. Yeah.
Does he Skype?
Does he Skype? Well, let's work on it. Let's get him here for the next one. Guys, that's all I got.